Well, thanks for coming out. Had no idea that it was going to snow at, 2 o'clock. And to be honest with you, not a fan of the snow. Don't like it much. I'm really not a fan of how we played recently, so I like that even less than I like the snow. But it's been good to have a couple of days of practice. Really have to do quite a bit of tweaking. So we've been on two-a-days, and we'll basically Saturday marks the halfway point, technically speaking, game 16, given that, you're going to be given 32. So we we'll see where we're at and obviously do everything in our power to get win number 11.
After a couple of days sitting back and watching it, just kind of what's your takeaway from the film from Monday night?
Well, it doesn't really differ from the press conference after the game. I think a lot of it's shot selection. I think if you can handle two things, if you can handle pick and roll and you can handle transition defense, I'll give you an example. The game the other night was 23% of the time USF was in transition, versus Temple it was 10%. But the Temple game required 25% of offense that they had that we defended via pick and roll. The other night was only 8. But if you'll add those up, it's usually a third of the game. We've been bad in both areas. So we needed to address transition defense, and it's an offensive issue too. And we need to address pick and roll. And so it's pretty been a pretty big emphasis.
2 days, is that different than what you guys were doing?
We've never had two-a-days since I've been here.
And the reason for that, just get them.
We're bad. Like we got to get good. So it's so we need more work.
You look at the losses, giving up 90 points and everything like that. Is there something that you can pin that on? Because that seems like it's a new trend that wasn't here last year or anything like that, or beginning of the
Yeah,
season.
I mean, it better not be a trend. I mean, it better be a two-game issue. Is what it needs to be. I think some of this going back to is we are going to have to joystick this. We are going to have to like make a little bit more decisions over there on the sideline. We've got to do a lot better in decision making. I mean, when you watch us kind of play in space, we're not making extra passes. We're not doing the things that are necessary in order to create advantages. And again, what's happened is the floor is getting really shrunk because of our personnel. And what has to happen is passes have to be made differently, whether they be shakes or on skips. And so those kind of things, and then what happens after that cannot necessarily lead to a shot given the long closeout. Like there's got to be extra passes. So some of this, yes, can be cured by offense, but some of it can be hopefully cured by simplification, and we'll know about that moving forward because that's what we've tried to do.
How are the players handling 2 days, back to back losses? Just what's the locker room like?
Good, I mean, good, but last time I said we were good and had good practices, we went out and played very, very bad. So I'm hesitant to say good. We haven't been good on road because what happens on a road game is the following day you usually come in, you review the film. Most of the guys, we have a what we call a stay ready group. If you didn't play, they come in, they get work, and so we put them through quite a bit of work. The stay ready group, but the guys who played, the 8 or 9 who played, they don't do anything. Then you have a 1 day prep for the next day. That's happened twice. UMKC, South Florida, play an away game, come back, and you get a 1 day prep, and then you play a game. And that hasn't worked well. It's about to happen again for Tuesday night, Charlotte, and given this weekend. So that has not gone well, and I think they understand it, and I mean that we've had some come to Jesus meetings, and to be honest with you, I think the overall theme of what every single player, because I had them be very frank, is we want to get better, and that's on us as coaches. It's some of it's methodology, some of it's teaching, some of it's simplification, but I will tell you their feedback has been good, and again, I hate to say they've responded well because I don't want to get up here because I've done it before and it's backfired on me. But we'll see on Saturday.
And those come to Jesus, is that player-led meetings? Is that everyone in the program is in a room, you guys just air everything out? How much can you share about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little of both. I do consider the locker room pretty sacred, but again, I'll go back to the main point of, I mean, you have guys who want to get better and they're thirsty to get better. And, that's on us. It's on us as coaches to try to make sure that's happening. And, so some of it, again, is methodology and just how we're doing things. And some of it's simplification and trying to clear up confusion. To be honest, I thought we did some of that after the Temple game, but it wasn't the case.
Can you give some more examples of what that simplification would look like, especially on the defensive end?
Without revealing too much on Saturday's game plan, the answer to that is no. So, I mean, we'll don't want to really tip my hand here on what, but I mean, you know, I'll give you an example. We've had Quincy Ballard kind of thinking, could handle some isolation situations in the post, whether that be Temple, Elijah Gray there when the score's tied, and Elijah gets back-to-back buckets because we leave Q on an island. Happened the other day, and none of this is Quincy Ballard's fault. But we've just got to be way more team-oriented on these kind of things, and not so much schematically as much as buying into actually what's happening on the floor via personnel. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I will tell you we've got to be way more mindful about that stuff.
To be 0-2 in conference play, obviously there's a bunch of games ahead of you and everything like that, but just kind of how difficult does that make it to start? I think that was with everything that happened last year. How big of a deal is it to get out of that and to have this start? How do you I'm trying to
Yeah. No.
sorry,
Yeah.
here.
It's. I mean. Listen. In order to give yourself a chance in conference, you have to win home games, and so to drop one it's pretty painful. And just because that opportunity, I mean, when you go back and watch the film and our lack of energy, just, I mean, you can't come out anticipating that it's going to be provided from me, from anybody, other than it has to be internally driven. The thing I tell players is that you have to have a PhD. You have to be passionate, hungry, and driven. And I didn't think either of those three boxes got checked until things were said at halftime. And the things that were said at halftime, I hope I never have to repeat again the rest of my life. But I mean, those are the kind of areas that you have to be internally driven in order to make that stuff happen. And it's some of this is learning the team too. I thought, with a veteran group, you could kind of give them a framework, and we can work with inside this framework. This is a challenge group, and you need to put difficult challenges in front of them. And at the same time, we're going to have to do a little bit more control here.
I guess just what stands out to you going into this next game against UTSA?
Well, one, Primo, their guard is the fourth leading scorer in the country. So you have another dynamic guard, which is what we faced at Temple against Jamal Mashburn. Jamal can really, really score. Primo can score and he can pass. He just had 39 in the last game versus Tulsa. He's 88% free throw shooter. He can pass, and he's got some guys around him that let him do what he does as they put shooters around him. So because of the attention that he attracts, their ability to make threes can cause problems. So, I mean, this has been an issue for us. I mean, 45% is a 135. So teams are on pace to score 135 points per game. I mean, if you 45%, 46%. So, I mean, we haven't done a good job defending the arc. And again, I'm hoping that maybe if we can just simplify some stuff, get back to where we were we can do a better job because we actually were doing a good job the first 12 games of the year.
The half court offense, obviously, it's it's a grind, like you said. But you have someone like Quincy Ballard, who's 75% from the field. Can you explain? Fans are like, why doesn't he just shoot 15 times a game? Can you explain the challenge of getting him more shots? And I'm sure you guys wanted him more involved, right?
Well, you have to think about how does he get shots? Are they off post-up opportunities? It's no, right? He's not shooting 75% off of post-up opportunities. I mean, everybody's got access to the numbers on just where that ranks. It's via O boards, it's via pick and roll, it's via transition, and if you look, I mean, he's in the 99th percentile in certain areas. I think with the game, the way that it's played, that if you have post up ability, it's probably more a cherry on top. So some of this is angles, but I mean, think about again how a guy gets a shot and what he's good at. So this isn't as simple as give him the ball on the block and this stuff happens simply because that's not how he's generating the offense.
With a guy like AJ who shoots the ball a lot and he's kind of going through a struggle right now, how do you as a coach kind of handle a player who likes to shoot a lot of threes but isn't really hitting them? Are you more hands-on, or you just kind of let them handle that, getting out of that slump on their own?
Well, they definitely need to get out of it on their own. I can't help them there. I think what happens is I'll give you an example. The first look that he had over here on the right side, there are extra passes to be made. Like, I mean, there are other things that can be done instead of me hunting. Like, we need to think the team's best shot. I mean, 7 assists on 24 made buckets. Like, I mean, that's pretty tough. And if you look at it again, there's a lot of single side actions where, hey, there's only one person in a corner, whether it be the right or the left, that we're getting in that space. And the next play that we need to make is not being made. Guys are, and X has the ability, Justin has the ability to go in there and do that. Whereas what they don't that they need to recognize is that floor is getting so far squeezed. So off of a pass out, it isn't necessarily going to be you. It's probably going to be somebody else. And just doing that, and then that has to lead to drives. It can't lead to what we would call baited shots. And AJ needs to get out of it, but some of this is just knowing the attention. He can spray it, and then if people know that you're a willing passer, you're probably going to get other opportunities. You see that with Steph, right? I mean, he's such a willing passer. But I would tell you, vice versa is always true. I think everybody knows Bijan is going in trying to pass. Well, then that makes you less of a threat as a passer. If you're a threat as a scorer, then you're going to attract more attention. Then you can make passes because people are defending you as a scorer. So if you go back to the K-State game, like his opening bucket is he's attacking the cup with a layup. Then that next one, he's attracting attention, and then he can make passes. The same thing happens for shooters. You have to get off of it. And so I think some of that. I thought the second after he made the 1-3, then had a second opportunity for another three. Thought that was those two looks were good, but you can't put yourself in a bad position on shot selection.
UTSA is a team that Ken Palm doesn't love that much by the metrics and everything, but going to their place, just kind of you can't take much stock in that, I assume.
No, I mean, yeah, listen, we need a win. I don't care if we were playing Sisters of the Poor. It does not matter to us. Like we're not taking anybody for granted as a coaching staff. Our players aren't taking anything for granted. I mean, nobody wants to sit here and not be able to find a way to be on the right side of the scoreboard. So it's I don't care what Kim Palm says. But I can tell you this: we're treating it like UTSA is #1 on Kim Palm and #1 in the country.
You mentioned decision making. That's an area where you guys can make a lot of strides in. How do you drill that? How do you improve in that? Is that something, film work? Can you drill it in practice? How do you get better at that?
Can definitely drill it in practice. So I mean, our warm up drills before guys have even go to stretching have become decision making. So, and we've spent quite a bit of time on it the last few days. And again, we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. I can tell you what it looks like in practice. I can tell you what the defense looks like at practice. But this, as I told the team the other day, this whole idea that we can take a 19-point USF lead and cut it to 10, or come out of the locker room and go on a 7-0 run. Like, if this doesn't sustain, we look like a bunch of front runners. Like, and you just look like you clap and are energetic when things are going your way. So, we'll figure out where we are in the next 12, 15 days.
I had a question just about Quincy off the court. So, like, our interactions with him, he's always been, like, really quiet. And
Yeah.
How is he kind of just with the team? Is he still that kind of quiet personality, or how would you describe him for people who don't
You're
know?
talking about Quincy Ballard?
Yeah.
Yeah. One, he's got a great personality. Now he's one of those guys who you're just not going to make friends with just because you say hello. Like, he needs to know that you're invested in him as a person and spend time. But he's a great guy, tremendous. I will tell you that in my mind, good players have alter egos. Who they are off the court is usually not who they are on the court. Uh, I mean, you think back to Iron Mike Tyson, right? There may have been some parallels there between off the court and on the court, but you think about guys having there needs to be an on court demeanor and an off court, and there's some similarities there, but I think his competitiveness has gotten a lot better, and I think he's a lot more social than he was when I got here, and he's a tremendous young man and does phenomenal job off the court, but you do have to kind of engage him a little bit. This isn't going to be a friendship that's just natural.
I have another Quincy question. What was your reaction when you saw that he made that dunk against Temple that made the Sports Center top 10?
I had no idea. Yeah. So
Well,
I
too.
I don't. Yeah. No offense to Weston, but I don't even follow. I follow it, but when I tell y'all I have not looked at Twitter in a long time. Craig Porter told me that when I first took the job. Do not look at Twitter, especially after losses. And that was when the first time I talked to. It was about 2 days on the job, and I said, "All right, won't ever look at Twitter." Uh, but it's one of those things where you understand what it is. But I had no idea he was. I found out he was number two, but I'm a week behind everything.
I mean, seeing that type of play make it like getting recognized by ESPN, I guess just what does that mean to you, especially even if it's a loss against Temple?
Zero means nothing to me. But to be honest with you, that's not the first time I've seen that one. I've seen that one quite a bit in practice. So I've seen better from Quincy than what that is at practice.
What's the update on Ronnie? And if he does come back, does that help with any of the struggles the team has right now?
Oh my goodness, yes, it helps. Yeah, Ronnie definitely helps. He's a good player, but he's currently working out with us. So he got cleared on Monday to do some activity. TJ has been with us, so we've got a heck of a scout team right now. Those guys have been, really, really good. Just being able to, we're defending those guys, and it's better sometimes than defending our GA. So everybody was working out yesterday. Some of it there's limitations, except for Zane. So we had 14 guys yesterday, and you need that especially when you're in two-a-day mode.
It can be pretty hard to get on the floor as a freshman, but the way you've kind of talked about TJ before, I know the injury kind of threw everything off, but did you have any kind of an estimate if he would have stayed healthy, kind of like what the minutes would be or anything for him this year?
No, it's hard simply because you need to see him in scrimmages, you need to see him in exhibitions, and he just unfortunately wasn't able to participate in any of that. So, no.
You mentioned a few different times the team will kind of have these like bursts of energy in the second half where they'll like cut the lead down, already being down by a large amount. What will it kind of take to kind of get kind of that energy or motivation at the beginning of games to kind of get them like locked in throughout the game? What will that mean as a team?
I've thought about that a lot. So that's a great question. Um, I don't know if you can see this scratch on my face right here, but uh, uh, you're gonna think I'm psycho after I tell you this. But I woke up at 4 o'clock in the. I didn't wake up. I was asleep. I feel myself scratching myself. Like I'm so mad at our defensive struggles, and I wake up and I'm bleeding. And I was like, what the heck? Like, how psycho am I to just scratch myself while I'm sleeping because I'm so upset about where we are defensively? I say all of that to answer your question. Like the other thing I think I'd scratch my face over is like how do you do it? I thought about dance parties before the game. Like, you know what? Let me learn to dance and do something to get them energetic and some level. To be honest with you, though, I think it's internal. Like, I mean, if this stuff means something to you, there's a fire that you come with, right? If this stuff's important to you, there's a way that you go about it. So I don't know. I think the external stuff's probably a little phony. It can be provided, but it is so temporary. Like, we cannot sit here and think, man, this is a Kansas State game. We are excited to play. And then, you know what? It's snowing today. The mood ain't great. We don't have, we've got a lot of people who can't show up on account of the weather. So, I need to kind of fill this game out. And that's the kind of stuff that can happen. How does it happen? It has to happen internally. But we've got to make sure the right people are in that locker room. So, to answer your question, it's recruiting. You cannot out practice bad recruiting, and I'm not telling you we have bad recruiting. It's the same way of you can't outrun a bad diet. You can go work out 6 days a week. If you're crushing food on Sunday and you go weigh yourself, it's not going to work. You can't out practice bad motives and bad intentions. So the way that gets solved is you've got to be internally motivated. You have to have a PhD, and we need a locker room full of those guys. And to be honest with you, um, let's see how this plays out before any judgments cast.
One more from me. You referenced it last year. I know Coach Tang referenced it too. The season you guys were at Baylor as assistants, and you guys didn't have a hot start to conference play. You ended up making it in March and everything. Can you expand on that story?
Yeah, I mean we were 2-8, and things not going well, and I remember telling the team that specific year at Baylor is like, guys, people who say that they believe in you, and then all of a sudden it's not going well, we're actually lying to you, right? And so, like, I mean, there are games in front of us, so we had 8 more games to play, and we end up 9-9 on the year, and then go on NCAA tournament, make the Sweet 16. But during that particular stretch, we had won 6 or 7 of our remaining 8, and put ourselves in a really good position. But some of it is schedule, some of it is understanding, and again, we're not halfway through the season, and so I think there's, I think some people think that November is kind of a finished product, but I mean, as you see with Tennessee, right? They go to Florida and things can change real quickly. I've seen it happen both ways. Now I can promise you, Tennessee's going to be just fine. But after watching Florida, I'm like, Florida is really, really good. One of the better teams that I've seen. But I will tell you, it's just one of those things where you just keep plugging away, and you need some things to go your way, and you can kind of watch a snowball effect begin to happen.
Anything else? Cool.
Appreciate the
Thanks, guys.